What's going on, my fellow YouTubers? I am back again with another Cowboys video, as you can tell. Today I'm going to be doing my best to, give my honest thoughts and, do a recap of our three previous victories, starting with the Bengals, the Giants, and the Commanders. And definitely going to be discussing a bit of the coaching staff as well, maybe talk about a few certain players, and then definitely give my thoughts on the upcoming game this week against the Rams, and possibly might be discussing a little bit about Philadelphia, afterwards, since they're our division rival and they are currently in the division, at 4-0. We're 3-1. Giants are 3-1, but since we beat them in the week 3, we owe the tiebreaker over them, and then the Commanders are 1-3 now. So let's just get into it. From a Cowboys fan, for me personally, I'm very glad that we're 3-1. It's great to be ahead in that division, especially the way the first week played out against the Bucs. How offensively we looked terrible. Dak looked off. He was mentally off. The offensive line was shaky at best. The defense was did what it could, but got gashed in the running game. And you're facing Tom Brady, and of course the offense not exactly not having the best receivers other than Lamb, but unfortunately he did not play very well in that game. So the offense entirely in that game just played like shit. So I'm just going to come out and say that. But then, of course, Dak got injured. Rush had to come in, didn't really do much. But in these three past games, he's really shown how capable of a quarterback Cooper Rush really is. And I'll give some credit to Kellen Moore. He's able to do much better in the play calling. But there's still some very questionable stuff that that Kellen Moore does, and I don't fully trust him to really scheme efficiently like he should, but I'll definitely get into that later. So anyways, our very first victory this season was against the Bengals. We won 20-17. Offense, for the most part, in the first half does very well. I actually missed most of the game, but from what I read on the stats, Cooper Rush was doing pretty decently. Lamb had a much better game. Noah Brown actually had a good game. He actually scored on a touchdown in that first half. And Tony Pollard had a pretty good game himself. And I think he was the other person that rushed for a touchdown, so we were up 14-0. And then at the end of the second quarter, we kicked a field goal and we're up 17-3. I was able to catch that part of the game from there on out. But in the second half, our offense doesn't score any points at all till like the last 2 minutes, and then the Bengals start coming alive. We were up 17-3, I believe. They start scoring points, and like I said, they scored another 14. It's like tied at that point. It's tied at 17. But thankfully, the defense comes up when it matters the most to make a stop. And after that, our offense was able to drive down, kick a field goal, and we kicked the game-winning field goal specifically. We won 20-17. So very glad that we did. The defense actually got to Burrow 6 times. 2 of the sacks were by Mika. Another 2 sacks were by Dorrance Armstrong. One was by LVE, I believe, and then the other one was from Fowler. So 6 sacks total. The offensive line in that game did much better. They only allowed 1 sack, so it was a definite improvement from the very first game, with Tyler Smith starting and Mark Farniok playing at guard. So yeah, a little bit of a well, not necessarily, but anyways, the line, either way you slice it, did much better, so that's good to see. But the play calling in the second half was very disappointing. I mean, we did have a good drive going at one point, but Schultz fumbled and actually injured himself. It was a PCL injury, and he didn't play in the Giants game after that. So, but anyway, you slice it, a good overall improvement from the offense, but I still feel like Kellen Moore didn't scheme very well in the second half. And the running game was much better, I believe. Zeke had an okay game. Pollard had a good game. So our rushing yards was better, and the defense overall was able to, do much better in the running game because Fournette had like over 100 yards rushing against us that first game. So the defense did step it up in the running game and actually managed to hold Burrow under 200 yards passing, which isn't bad considering that the Bengals last season were in the Super Bowl and almost could have pulled it off, but their offensive line got manhandled, and we manhandled their line for sure. So there you go. Then next up, we're facing our division rival, the Giants, and they're 2-0, so they're not the same team that they were last year. They have Daniel Jones, kind of like a little more of a confident player, and for the most part, despite us winning 23-16 against them, Jones looks a little more confident, and he actually gashed us in the running game. As a result, he had like 79 yards rushing, and Saquon Barkley had 81 yards. He actually had a touchdown, which we were leading in the first half. We were leading 63. They tied it up, and then in the second half, of course, Barkley scores on a 36-yard touchdown. They take the lead 13-6, and I think, no shit, here we go again. But Saquon is Saquon. He's a good player, and he knows how to run effectively when called upon. So there you go. But after that, believe it or not, we actually responded back, and we ended up scoring and tying it up at 13. And before then, CeeDee Lamb was struggling. He actually dropped a very easy pass that could have been going for so many yards, maybe even a touchdown, and was laughing about it, and I was pissed off by that. I was like, this guy just clearly doesn't have it. He doesn't have it to be a number one. I was almost, ready to just trade his ass. But then in the second half, all of a sudden, Lamb becomes a much more different player. He becomes a more confident player. He starts making all the catches that are thrown to him. He actually kept the drive alive when we converted on a 4th and 3, 4th and 4. I don't remember specifically, but we got that. He gets a good amount of yards on the next play, and then he scores on a touchdown with a one-handed catch. So yeah, CeeDee Lamb just pretty much dominated that half after that. Noah Brown did a decent job. I think even our tight ends, Ferguson, I think Hendershot actually had a pretty decent game, and he's an undrafted rookie free agent. So I'm liking what I'm seeing from the tight ends, and especially with Ferguson too. I think Ferguson, our 4th round draft pick, is showing something, and I think he's got some good potential. And the defense itself, despite being gashed in the running game, we managed to get to Daniel Jones quite a bit. We sacked him 5 times. 3 of the sacks came from DeMarcus Lawrence, who the first 2 games he really wasn't showing much, but for whatever reason he was able to show up pretty well. But then again, he was facing Evan Neal, their new right tackle, I believe, and their right tackle, Evan Neal, just struggled against DeMarcus Lawrence. He did get injured a bit or dinged up, but then he was able to come back. And then 1 sack was also from Donovan Wilson. I think 1 other sack was from Dorrance Armstrong. And Dorrance Armstrong has looked pretty decent so far. For what we paid him, and him getting 3 sacks so far throughout those 3 weeks is pretty decent. We got a fairly decent deal on his part. So, and overall, it was a good performance overall, especially in the second half. We scored more points in the second half than we did in the first. So Kellen Moore actually called a pretty decent game because Elliott had some good yards on the ground. I think Tony Pollard also had a good chunk as well. Cooper Rush didn't turn the ball over. He did the job that he could do and didn't make any mistakes. And in fact, I don't think the O-line allowed a sack in that game. So that was actually a good overall offensive performance in that game. So we're now 2-1. Now we come in facing the Commanders, who the last week they were almost shut out until the last few minutes of the game, and the Eagles beat them 24-8. But I had a feeling that the Redskins were going to step it up because they allowed 9 sacks. And for overall for the Commanders, we did get to wince a few times, but not anywhere near the amount that the other teams did. But despite all that, we won 25-10 against the Commanders, so that's a pretty convincing victory. However, in that game, sadly, we had problems because the defense got even more gashed this time. I can't remember who it was. It was Gibson or the other running back. They had a 33-yard run on us, and that was pretty bad. And I don't know if it's because of the edges, the defense not setting the edges. I don't know if they have too many. They have like a tight end chipping us or whatnot. Because the past 2 games, Mika has not been able to sack the quarterback, and he does look a little dinged up. Maybe the presence on him being in the field is enough, but teams are going to start to kind of figure that out. Especially if they start. They might start putting a few tight ends on the side and start trying to run at him because some of the other players on defense like LVE and Barr are, one's a little slow to react. That's kind of the problem. But sorry if I'm spacing out. I'm just trying to remember. I know that Gallimore got a sack, but even before it seemed like he was like a non-factor. Maybe he's stepping up, but I like to see a little more from our defensive tackles, and I like to see a little more from Lawrence because I know that Washington didn't have one of their tackles in there, but they still managed to gash us on the run game pretty good, and that's my concern going into this coming week. Is our run defense is very leaky, and it's either ranked 27th or 28th, somewhere in between, and that needs to be addressed fast because we face the Rams. And Sean McVay, knowing what he is, and even though they're not the same team that we faced, a few years ago, I wouldn't be surprised if McVay would try to expose that spot yet again, our run defense, our deficiency of stopping the run. But, of course, despite all that, despite the fact they ran pretty well, I think the defense managed to clamp down a bit better in the second half. But still, having those runs on us, like the Washington had 136 yards rushing, somewhere around there. But in the Giants game, they did run on us pretty well, and Daniel Jones actually had, considering he's a quarterback, he had like 79 yards of rushing on that defense. So that's definitely a concern going into this week's game. But if I go back a bit on the Washington game, our offense did okay. It started off running the ball okay, but in the second half, I felt like our running plays were going very negatively. Tony Pollard got stopped for a loss at one point. Zeke was kind of up and down. He had one okay run in the second half, but that's about it. Cooper Rush did okay. He actually threw for 2 touchdowns. One was to Gallup, who came back for this game. He was supposed to come back for the Giants game at one point, but at the last minute they held him up because they felt he wasn't ready. This time he was. He caught 2 passes. One was for a touchdown that put us up ahead 12-7, I believe. And then after that, we just pretty much, we never gave the lead after that. And in the third quarter, Cooper Rush threw a touchdown pass to Lamb, 30-yard, and that was a pretty good pass from Rush. So I like what I'm seeing from Cooper Rush. He's really stepped up these past 3 games. He's showing that he can be, a very effective quarterback for us. And there may be at times where I can see, where there's a reason why he's a backup, but there's also a reason why he's also winning too, because he's making some good decisions. He's also getting the ball out quick. He's really stepping up, and I'm glad for Cooper. I'm glad that we have him on our team. He didn't look so great in the preseason, but all of a sudden, when it comes to the regular season games, this guy's just making better decisions overall, and he's not losing. That's great. He's getting our team down the field in a good chance to score, whether it be a touchdown or a field goal. And Maher had a pretty good game. He had one field goal blocked, but that wasn't his fault. It was the guys, whoever it was, that allowed that to happen. But anyways, so the offense did decent in that game. Could have been better. There was a couple throws that Cooper Rush might have been intercepted, but thankfully the Commanders were called for interference or defensive holding. And the good news is the penalties in that game, we had very few, and they had like 10 or 11 for over 100 yards. So they were a bit more undisciplined, and we were far more disciplined. And it's a credit to Mike McCarthy. He's done a much better job. He was able to rein in Kellen Moore after that debacle against the Bucs. And our offense so far has looked improved and a little better efficient, but it could be still so much better than what I have been seeing. In the defense, despite the leaky run defense, we were able to contain Carson Wentz. We actually forced him, if they were running on us, we were going to have to force Carson Wentz to beat us, and he only had 1 touchdown. He was held under 200 yards, and we intercepted him twice, one by Trayvon Diggs and one by our new rookie cornerback in Deron Bland. And Trayvon Diggs, I'll say this, he's the most improved player. He had 3 pass deflections to add to that as well. He so far has 2 interceptions. Playing much improved. I think we're lucky to have him. I think he's been the best player on the defense. And Gallimore had that 1 sack, so he did a little better. But I still like to see more from our defensive tackles. I like to see a little bit better performance from them. Because when we got to Wentz twice, it was by Gallimore, and then Fowler had a sack on him. So that's only 2 sacks. And the line did okay. I mean, I think McGovern, he's the one that allowed the sack, and I believe Jason Pierce came in to replace him after that, and I don't think McGovern played much after that, so I can understand why that was the case. I don't think McGovern's still right from that ankle sprain that he suffered in week 1. But anyway, slice it. It was a victory. We won by 15 points. Our defense, has really done a much better job this far, at least in terms of the pass. Still have a concern about that run defense, and it definitely needs to shore up and improve. Otherwise, McVay is definitely going to expose us on that type of problem, and it could be a repeat of the 2018 playoffs again, where they had like 200 yards rushing on us, and definitely don't want to see that again. Dan Quinn has really been putting these guys to better position to succeed and maybe maximize their potential, like Micah. Barr's playing okay. He's kind of had some up and down games. OVE, I think, has played okay, but he's a bit slow to react, and I think in all honesty, I think we have to have a couple young guys be in there, because I'm still not really impressed with Anthony Brown. I don't know why Dan Quinn loves him so much. I don't know if he's freaking in love with him or just is. I don't know. I've never been impressed with Anthony Brown. I'm sure, like I said before, he'll have his good games and he'll definitely have his bad games. So, yeah, I feel like what's his face, Dotson, who was a rookie, he managed to somehow, outdo Brown on that one play. I know maybe it was a little hard, but I didn't see Brown look at the ball, and at least Trayvon Diggs looks for the ball, and I think DeBron Bland does too. If anything, I think Kelvin Joseph deserves a chance to start in place of Brown. And as much as I like Jordan Lewis and what he can do in the slot, I don't think I think with his speed, I don't think he can keep up with a fair amount of receivers unless if our pass rush can get there. And I'm sure our pass rush can get to quarterbacks at times, but you never know. It's never consistent enough. And that's why I think DeBron Bland has a chance to really be a better version of Lewis with a little better speed. And I think, like I said, Kelvin Joseph, has a little bit better speed than Brown. I think he deserves a chance to start. And same thing with Jabril Cox. I want to see him out there. He may not be the best tackler, but he can still tackle pretty decently, and he can be an aggressive player, and also is good in coverage too. That was his main pro whenever he's in the game. He has good coverage ability, and we definitely need that on the defense. We can definitely use that. And then, of course, potentially maybe down the road, Damone Clark might be playing, but I don't know if he's quite ready yet because of that spinal fusion surgery. It's kind of similar to what LVE had back in 2019. But anyway, you slice it. I think a few young guys deserve a chance to be starting in that defensive front for Dan Quinn. So, we're getting the turnovers. We're also getting the necessary stops. We're getting the necessary pressure. I like what I'm seeing from this defense so far. As for Kellen Moore, as much as he has improved some, his play calling, it's still very questionable and shaky at best. And I really hate how he gets away from things. Like on the third and shorts, like we had a chance to just run the ball and just milk the clock off. He goes cute and wants to fucking pass. I get it, you want to be aggressive, but there's a time to not be aggressive, and there's a time to be conservative. If you want to just chew out the clock and not let the opposing offense, have any chances to score or have like a 2-minute drill type of drive. You gotta just be conservative, and you just can't be too aggressive when it's not necessary. And that's why we ended up kicking a couple of those field goals. And I felt like McCarthy should have gone for it on 4th and 1. I think you need to be a little more aggressive at home when it's necessary. And that was a time to be aggressive, because even though our defense was, holding up and, pressuring Wentz and, preventing any kind of big drives from going forward, you need to just be aggressive and show a little sense of urgency, because it's only 4th and 1. I think you would have gotten it, You could have done a quarterback sneak with the way the line was playing. I think that's what you should have done, McCarthy, and I still question your decisions, but I will say this: you've definitely done a much better job in getting the backups to win, because that's something that Garrett could never fucking do. And at least McCarthy, to his credit, knows how to win games with a backup. Something like our fucking former head coach, our joke of a head coach, and Jason Garrett could never ever do, unless if we had so many losses at that point. But anyways, glad we won these 3 games. I'm very glad that we're 3-1, and we're showing some improvement. We might make a run, who knows? But it is the Cowboys, and will be consistently good or just inconsistently, bad, good. It is what it is. But the game against the Rams, that's going to be a good one because they just lost to the 49ers, only scored 9 points, and I have a feeling that it's going to be a tough game and it's going to be a bit different from what we've seen. I'm pretty sure Stafford's going to try to light us up, but also McVay may have something up his sleeve and might try to run on us because we're ranked pretty low in defending the run because we're 27th or 28th, one of the two, in doing that because for some reason offenses seem to gash us on the edges, and I have no idea why we're not setting the edge or just lack of aggression on the defense. I feel like having a guy like Jabril Cox, a young player, along with Anthony Barr with his speed, I think we can make. I think we can set the tone and do much better in defending the run because if we don't make any kind of change to the scheme, they're going to gash us on the run, and it's going to be like that 2018 playoffs all over again. And I know I'm repeating myself, but it needs to be done. We need to address that. The whole team, the whole defense, and Dan Quinn needs to really just find a solution to at least contain the run much better than we have in the previous 2 games. So let's hope that he has something up his sleeve. And Kellen Moore, like I said before, I don't trust him to scheme effectively because he just doesn't know how to. He just has too much of a quarterback mindset and doesn't seem to really scheme the runs very well either. Like, Washington has a good defensive tackle front, and Jonathan Allen and Deron Payne, so they're pretty good. They don't have Chase Young, so I don't know who the edge rushers are on their defense, and I think we should have been going more into the outside, not in the inside, because we only got maybe a few yards, maybe 5 yards at most. These outside runs need to be taken advantage of if they don't have any very well-known run stuffers. So, yeah. That needs to change, but it is what it is. And then, of course, the Eagles, they've been running the ball pretty well, too, and they might try to gash us in the run. And, of course, Jalen Hurts being a very mobile quarterback, despite the fact that we have some capable defensive ends and having Micah Parsons, he might try to do a lot of quarterback runs with us like the Giants did with Daniel Jones. And so that needs to be – there needs to be a solution to that. Otherwise, we might just get worse in defending the run from here on out. So let's hope that this team knows what it can do and knows what it's capable of doing, and just feels good and feels confident to make stops when it matters the most. Because Trayvon Diggs was able to make a stop in that Bengals game when it mattered the most by preventing a first down and forcing them to punt, and we took advantage of it and ended up taking the game-winning field goal. So I want to see some improvements. I want to see some consistency. I want to see us really showing that we are a good team and that we can beat some good teams and not just have another up and down type of season where we can beat one team there but lose to another team very badly, or just be out-coached and out-schemed because somebody wasn't in their position, or the coaches didn't know how to put the players in a position to make any kind of tackles or blocking and whatnot. And Schultz kind of didn't have that good of a game because, in fact, he was called for a false start that may have prevented us from getting another touchdown. So, yeah, I feel like Schultz is kind of regressing, and if I were the Cowboys, I might trade him, but I don't think anyone's going to see any kind of trade value for him, but it is what it is. But anyways, I think I've gone on for far too long. I went much longer than I would have, but I just wanted to give my real honest thoughts on how we have been winning the past 3 games, and hopefully we have a very consistent winning streak going on that shows that we are capable of playing anybody and being competitive, and just show that we are a team that's ready to make a run in the playoffs and not just be one and done like it was last season. So that's what I'm hoping for. But I wouldn't be surprised if we have some very bad laying egg type of games along the way. So there we go. So anyways, that's going to do it for me. Feel free to like the video, comment, share your thoughts, and let me know what you think. Oh, sorry, I forgot to mention. I like Maher's improvement. Having a legitimately good special teams coach in John Fossil can really do wonders, and it really improves. He's hit like 10 of 11 field goals, so that's good to know that he's improving and on a consistent basis. He's able to make the kicks like he should, because the previous special teams coach that we had here before somehow wasn't clicking with him, and Bones is doing a much better job than what our previous special teams coach has done. So there. Sorry about the last minute thing, but I just wanted to throw that in there. But yeah, let's go Cowboys, and let's hope we can get another victory. And I hope that will be the case. So anyways, that's going to do it for me. I will see you later. Bye-bye.